Dans le métro. Monsieur, bonsoir. Et votre question, si je m'abuse, ça laisse à Monsieur Dauphin.
My question is for Mr. Dauphin, yes.
Je vous écoute, monsieur.
I'm here tonight to address Monsieur Dauphin's involvement in the signing of the contract in 2004 with Verint, who was providing the security cameras and the installation in our metro. A few months ago, there was a group of my colleagues who came to this chamber to ask Mr. Dauphin about this subject, which he feigned ignorance about, saying he had no idea what we were talking about, what contract we were talking about, what company we're talking about, even though we have him in press releases describing the wonders that Verint's security systems will bring to Montreal. So I'm not here tonight to ask Mr. Dauphin why he is giving this company, which has extensive ties to CIA, Mossad, and MI6, this contract to our city, because it is quite apparent he does not want to answer that question. I'm only here tonight to express my concern as a citizen and as someone who takes the metro every day, to inform all of you that there are many of us in this city who know the truth about what happened on September 11th, what happened in London on 7/7, and that you had better make sure that nothing happens to our city, because if an attack happens in the metro and you try and blame it on Al-Qaeda or Iran or whatever they're going to try and blame it on, we will not believe you. And that is the only reason I came here tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Bonsoir, Monsieur Labrier. We had the occasion, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, to answer some questions like the one we're having tonight. My colleague, Claude Trudel, the president of the MTC, Montreal Transit Corporation, had the opportunity to answer these questions. What I remember about this question is that we had been in public tender in 2004, and it's a company that won the public tender. So I'm not aware personally, Mr. Speaker, exactly which company got it, which other company didn't get it, but I know that all the rules were followed, and we had been in public tenders, and there was a selection committee with a jury, and it's the best company in my knowledge that got the contract. But otherwise, I have no memory about exactly what happened, if it wasn't a good company or the best company. I know that we had been in public tender, and the company won.
Monsieur Dauphin, thank you, Monsieur Dauphin. Do you have another short question?
No, I would just like to clarify that I am not accusing anyone here of complicity in any sort of conspiracy or what have you. I simply want to make known that there are thousands of citizens in Montreal that if there is an attack, that we will not believe the stories that you give us. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
All right, that's Sam Labrier joining us from 9/11 Montreal Truth. And they've confronted members of the parliament. They've confronted the former prime ministers. They've confronted the city councils, bringing this up. And you have to understand, with 7/7, we know the government carried out the attacks. And I've made the film Terror Storm detailing that. That's even more clear-cut than 9/11, which is also very easily proven. But with 7/7, we have a lot of specifics. That's why they've quietly had to turn loose all the people they claim were involved in supporting the plot. They were really just government agents, people that were being recruited into intelligence, asked to take part in the drill, and then they blew them up on board the trains and buses. That's why Visor Consultancy for the government in the metro was running a drill of the exact same bus and exact same trains, subways, being bombed at the exact same time and date in London. Impossible. Same thing on 9/11. They had the exact same drills, exact same time. USA Today, Associated Press, same buildings being attacked. That way, if good people in government that are compartmentalized and aren't part of the small group carrying out the attack, that way, if the bad guys get caught by the good guys, they can say, oh, that was just part of a drill. And they'll even come out and admit they were doing these drills a lot of times just to throw it in everybody's face and say, well, we admit we were doing the drill. How unusual. But the fact that the gentleman we have on the line with us went down there and confronted them, Sam Labrier, the fact that he did that preempts what they're doing. Because I remember at the time being on air, they were already saying in Montreal News, we think Al-Qaeda is going to hit the subway. We're pretty sure we're going to have a 7/7 here. And then they had that stage capture of people that were planning it and all the rest of it. And turned out that was fake, just like the thing 2 weeks ago with the black guys in New York and New Jersey who had no intention of bombing anything. The FBI created the group, tried to get them to carry out terror. They weren't even Muslims, just like Miami in 96. Same story. Sam, well, we can ask him now, saw this threat, went down and preemptively said, don't try that here. I mean, is that what you did? Is that why you went ahead and went down and talked to him, sir?
Well, before we get into that, didn't I see a few days ago on your website that there was an explosion in North Carolina that they blamed on a drill? That, you know, it could be the same thing, right?
Absolutely. There was in fact, that's up on Infowars.com today. I haven't even covered that, where they staged a terror attack and then just said it was a drill. Was that an operation where the police got caught and then a huge explosion, areas destroyed, is just turned into no big deal? In fact, I'm going to print that right now. Go ahead. Tell folks about that.
Well, all I know is what I saw on your website, but I mean, it was extremely suspicious. It reminded me, of course, of 9/11, of 7/7, of the fact that they run these drills as cover in case something goes wrong. They can say, oh, it was a drill, never mind, don't worry about it.
It's amazing. Let's speak about government-sponsored terrorism first, and Montreal 9/11 Truth, and more of how you guys are going out and bringing up these key issues and how preemptively talking about how they may be planning to stage terror can preempt their activities in a devastating fashion. You also see how serious the government was taking what you were just now saying. Let's go ahead and go through that and then into the public Bilderberg Group event happening as they take over your government, openly announcing world government in Canada.
Yeah, well, I have to say that actually I wouldn't have even have been aware of the company being given the contract for the security cameras in our subway if it weren't for the work of some other members of Montreal 9/11 Truth who came along first and did the research and found out about it. And when I found out, I mean, it didn't pass the stink test. This company had been given the rights to do the security cameras in the London Underground right before 7/7, which, I mean, we all remember, of course, were the same cameras that, you know, didn't work that day on 7/7. It's a company that's owned by a former Mossad official. He's now fighting extradition from, I think it's like Liberia or some African country that doesn't have extradition treaties because he's being brought up on fraud charges. And this guy is a piece of work. And we gave his company the contract for our subway system here in Montreal after it didn't function in the London bombings on 7/7. I mean, come on. So when I heard that, I had to go down and at least videotape my confrontation with the City Hall and put it up on YouTube so that if there was ever something that would happen in Montreal, we could at least point to that in the past and say, look, you know, some people were warning about this before it happened.
Well, absolutely. And it's important to add here that it came out in the news on the day of 7/7 that Benjamin Netanyahu was warned by the head of the Mossad, and because he gave a press conference, and he was in 7/7 that day, just a few hundred yards away from the first train bombing, to, quote, not take the subway because of dangers in the subway that day. And then, even though that was in Haaretz and Jerusalem Post and AP and was all over the news, then they came out in the news and denied it and said it was all a conspiracy theory. And then a week later, the head of Mossad came out again and said, no, we did warn him. I mean, we knew this was going to happen.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, what's his name, Peter Power? And the
yes, Visor Consultants.
Just happened to be running drills at the same locations at the same time on the same day. I mean, well, that's just conspiracy theory, right? I mean, anybody who's got a little common sense knows that the conspiracy theory is just trying to dissuade us from asking these questions, which anybody with a modicum of common sense is going to see. These are very important questions. Like, how could it have been scheduled at the same subway stations on 7/7 at the same time on the same day? I mean, that's not a conspiracy theory. That's just common sense.